All right, everyone. Week 1. Welcome. All right, so in chapter 1 of Esther, it pretty much was an introduction to the whole setting. It was setting the stage. And I believe that there's something so symbolic about setting the way they set the stage in Esther, because in Esther, King Xerxes and his wife, Queen Vashti, they were throwing this week-long party for everyone in Susa. And they were wining, dining, just enjoying themselves. The king, of course, was with his guys in one place. Queen Vashti was with her girls in another place. And so at one point, the king is drunk, he's drinking, he's hanging out, he wants to show off his beautiful wife to his friends, and he sends for her. And she pretty much was like, yeah, no, I'm okay. No, thank you. I'm not doing that. He pretty much wanted to show her off. And anyone who is married knows that sometimes your husband just wants to show you off to people. Does that make it right all the time? No. But the reality is that's what he wanted to do, and she turned him down. And the one thing that God really spoke to me about this was in marriage. As they continue on with the chapter, the servants go back and they're like, yeah, she said no, she's not coming. Yeah, she knows you called for her, but no, she's not going to do it. And so his guys are around and they're like, you're really going to let her do that? That's your wife. She said no to you. Like, you summoned for her and she said no. And now you're going to look stupid. Now all our wives are going to be looking like, oh, so she can do that? Oh, we don't have to do that either. We don't have to get up and go anytime they call. You need to teach her a lesson. And in turn, he agrees with them. And they pretty much put a proclamation out there. And they use her as the shining example. This is what happens when your husband, a man in authority, calls you and you decide to say no. Not only to him, but in front of all your friends for them to see. And she got banished. She lost her queendom. She lost her place in the royal kingdom. She lost her home. She lost everything. And she got kicked out of the area. And so when I was first looking at it, I was like, God, that's really harsh. That's really harsh. And the one thing that the Lord showed me, at the time that we were getting these words from God, that we were getting so many different confirmations, we were in a place where I did a lot of the decision making. I was at that head of the household type position where I'm I'm about 4 years older than my husband. I had been on my own longer than my husband had been on his own. And so I just naturally took the place of making a lot of the decisions, making sure bills were paid, making sure things were taken care of with the house and the kids and the cars. And so at this point, God was like, you know what? I'm getting ready to bring you to a different level of ministry. I'm getting ready to pick up and move your family across the country. I need you guys to get some things in order. One thing that we always teach our kids and that we always speak about to our kids and within each other, my husband and I, is that ministry starts at home. And in order for God to truly establish a strong ministry within a family, you need to be in right order, in right standings in your home before you can go out and try to lead and guide anyone else. And so that was the first thing that God needed to establish within our family. When he pointed that out, he said, okay, you've been doing this so long on your own that even when I bought you a man, even when I brought this man into your life to be the head of your house, your household, your family, you still just kind of took control, and now you just have another person to be controlling over. And I was like, Lord, well, I didn't mean for it to be that way. I've just been so used to it. And so God brought me to a point where he was like, okay, well, now you need to step back, get back into your lane, and let him be the man of the house. Let him be the head of your household. It's not that he was incapable. And I think a lot of times as women, because, especially when you're a very strong, stubborn-minded person in general, you think nobody else can do it like you. And the reality is there may not be people that can do things like you can, but that doesn't mean they don't know how to get the job done. And so God had to really restore the order back into our family. And so when this transition came, when God began to speak to us about this transition, the Lord said, okay, I'm going to show you certain things, but I'm going to speak to your husband. I'm going to speak to your husband, and you have to trust that your husband is connected so much with me that I am the one guiding him. That's how you pray. You pray that I guide him in the way that you guys should go in this transition, and trust that he will follow my lead. And so it was a huge thing for me, because I had to get out of the position of control, step aside, get into my lane as the supporter, as the wife who is praying for my husband to truly hear the Lord, to truly be obedient to the Lord, so that this next step could be one that is aligned with God's will for our lives. And so the more I began to step back and relinquish the control, the more I began to say, you know what, God, I submit it all to you. I know that you're going to guide my husband in the way that we should go, and I know that he will listen and be obedient. The more my husband began to literally step up and step into his position and dig into the Lord more, because he knew, like, man, because there was a part of him that looked at me like, so you're really going to let me, like, take the lead on this? Wow, okay, like, I really have to do this. It's a lot of pressure. But you know what? It made him get into position to where he needed to be. And that's where they leave us at with Esther chapter 1, is when God brings you to a point where you either have one of two choices. You're either going to obey, get into your lane, and let God be the one to do the steering within your husband, within your life, or you're going to disobey. So in this week, we're left at a two-way street. We're left at that stop sign, and we're looking. That's that fork in the road. And so within the next week, we're going to find out which way things went. How did things go? How does it look when you go one way? How does it look when you go another? Because there's always a consequence to every decision, whether it turns out good or whether it turns out bad. So let's see how this leads. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.